65 agonizing days, that exact time frame, forms the absolute core of the ongoing Nancy. Anyone tracking this chilling mystery since day one understands exactly the gravity of that milestone. 65 days have passed since a Tucson resident disappeared directly from her Arizona residence. It has been over 2 months since a security lens captured that supposedly orchestrated exit. 65 days of agonizing silence. Yet tonight brings undeniable facts to light. We refuse to waste time rehashing familiar details. You are fully briefed on those. Our focus is entirely forward. Federal agents officially verified discovering foreign genetic material inside the Guthrie household. This biological evidence definitely excludes both the victim and her immediate inner circle. Surprisingly, this sample drew a complete blank in CODIS, a nationwide criminal registry containing over 20 million prior offender profiles. Despite this massive clue, authorities have not named, detained, or formally accused a single suspect yet. Therefore, where exactly does this inquiry stand? How are they handling that crucial genetic sample? And why hasn't this investigation's most potent verified forensic asset generated any major breakthroughs, which currently sits inside a federal lab, yielded a solid lead after 65 days? We will tackle this query head-on tonight, completely bypassing baseless theories and internet gossip. By consulting a brilliant expert who cracked over 300 dead-end files using the identical scientific methods currently analyzing this. Parabon Nanolabs' chief genetic genealogist CeCe Moore recently granted TMZ a highly revealing interview, thoroughly explaining the exact technical hurdles stalling this highly anticipated criminal probe. She speaks with absolute precision. Her direct expertise guarantees that tonight's final revelation will fundamentally alter your perspective on this. Keep watching to discover the current status of the search. Let us examine the exact position of this ongoing manhunt. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, whose daughter co-hosts NBC's Today Show, mysteriously vanished from her Arizona residence during February 2026. A routine welfare check quickly spiraled into a massive full-blown criminal investigation. Standard missing persons cases rarely see this level of aggressive mobilization. The federal government stepped in quickly. Multiple distinct agencies are collaborating, utilizing heavy-duty resources that clearly indicate detectives suspect severe foul play. Pima County deputies made these official statements publicly. Technicians extracted foreign biological matter from the crime scene. Those specific genetic markers clearly rule out the homeowner. The sample completely excludes her frequent visitors as well. A thorough scan of the National Registry yielded 0 hits. Now, federal scientists control that However, local authorities remain stubbornly tight-lipped regarding the exact collection method, the specific contaminated surfaces, the trace amount found, or their timeline regarding its origin. This strategic secrecy actually speaks volumes. Cops usually boast to the press when they have a solid suspect, while prolonged silence typically implies they are fiercely guarding a delicate trail. Throughout this grueling search, Sheriff Chris Nanos endured intense public backlash and heavy criticism. Our network previously highlighted the glaring contradictions in his press briefings and the chaotic initial evidence collection. However, we refuse to reopen those old. Tonight's broadcast strictly focuses on the current scientific reality. Tangible proof genuinely exists, lab technicians are testing it relentlessly, yet a quick resolution remains elusive. We intend to uncover exactly why tonight. But first, consider a crucial detail before diving into the biology. The Drop Dead Serious podcast, hosted by Ashley Banfield, consistently delivered top-tier coverage by utilizing anonymous police insiders. The veteran journalist recently revealed, relying on protected precinct contacts, that the biological profile discovered at the victim's residence is highly tangled and problematic. That specific descriptor is exactly where our expert begins unraveling what this genetic material truly represents. After local deputies admitted the collected sample failed to trigger a database alert, the public prematurely deemed the investigation completely stalled. That assumption is totally false. Recognizing the truth requires grasping the actual function of this federal tracking system. The Combined DNA Index System operates strictly under FBI management. This massive archive stores the genetic blueprints of roughly 20 million Americans, strictly comprising documented felons and recently apprehended delinquents. Whenever a suspect's profile already exists within that server, investigators can hit a jackpot within hours. However, that relies on a massive hypothetical. This federal tool exclusively tracks individuals previously processed through the justice system for serious infractions. It completely ignores average law-abiding citizens. The registry lacks records of individuals without criminal histories, completely ignoring the tens of millions of users who freely mail their spit to private ancestry companies. Therefore, a negative result implies 2 potential realities for detectives. Either the mystery suspect who contaminated the scene boasts an absolutely spotless criminal record, or alternatively, they recovered what scientists dub a tangled biological web, which remains the leading theory among top lab technicians today. This term is completely self-explanatory. Rather than finding a perfectly isolated biological drop, technicians swabbed a highly contaminated spot holding the microscopic signatures of numerous distinct individuals all mashed together. Forensic experts encounter this chaos constantly. Human hands constantly shed cellular debris across everyday household objects, severely contaminating doorknobs, light fixtures, and banisters. Such high-traffic areas silently hoard the microscopic fingerprints of absolutely everyone passing through. Isolating profiles from a dual-source stain is fairly routine for modern science. Most facilities utilize automated software to effortlessly separate two distinct genetic signatures. Unfortunately, the fluid recovered from the victim's house, according to inside sources, speaking with our expert, goes far beyond a simple double contamination. They are facing an absolute genetic nightmare containing upwards of 3 different individuals, where the actual perpetrator might only account for 10% of the entire swab. When you are dealing with trace amounts around 10%, or worse, dividing that among 4 unidentified men at 5% each, that swab will almost certainly never crack the mystery. Consider the real-world implications of this lab result. If you divide the extracted material into 10 parts, 9 of those slices likely trace back to perfectly innocent house guests. The victim, her relatives, trusted handymen and nurses leave heavy traces, leaving a tiny microscopic sliver for the actual intruder. Pulling that tiny 10% out of the digital chaos to find one mystery person, hidden inside loud background data, remains the absolute toughest mountain for today's forensic experts to climb. Digging deeper reveals another massive hurdle, since the real issue extends far beyond merely spotting a perpetrator's signature hidden inside this blended sample. Detectives actually need a highly specialized blueprint built exclusively for ancestry tracking, which poses an entirely distinct puzzle according to our leading DNA specialist, CeCe Moore. Nobody commands more respect or authority within this complex investigative field today than CeCe Moore. She leads the Ancestry Division at Parabon Nanolabs, acting as the primary driving force behind America's top criminal genealogy organization. Anyone following major criminal investigations over the last 5 years has absolutely witnessed her groundbreaking techniques in action. Authorities credit her with cracking over 300 frozen investigations that previously lacked any viable suspects or forward momentum. She routinely shatters decades of total silence by deploying modern ancestry tools against forgotten biological samples, gathering dust inside precinct vaults. As the undisputed heavyweight champion of this niche scientific arena, she recently shared her direct insights with reporters regarding the Nancy Guthrie mystery. Her statement completely blindsided everyone following the investigation closely, carrying immense weight for reasons far beyond her actual revelations. The mere fact that she spoke out speaks volumes, since she fiercely avoids tossing baseless theories around during ongoing police operations. Explaining exactly why these biological traces hit a brick wall comes directly from her deep insider knowledge of laboratory obstacles, summarizing her crucial media interview here. Detectives pulled a deeply tangled biological mess from the Guthrie residence, capturing a highly chaotic blend rather than a straightforward clean swab. Untangling these chaotic blends completely flips the underlying science upside down, especially when investigators pivot away from standard matching to deploy modern ancestry tracking. This particular evidence represents a severely tangled blend pointing to 3 or more contributors and likely hiding multiple unnamed ghosts in the data. Standard criminal biology protocols typically processed through the National Federal Database depend heavily on identifying short sequences of repeating genetic code. Scientists essentially look at a universally agreed upon handful of biological flags to construct a digital fingerprint for the suspect. Technicians easily navigate these traditional blended samples today thanks to highly advanced computer programs perfected over several decades of trial and error. Experts can easily pluck out the faintest traditional signature from the background noise and run it through federal servers, but ancestry tracing demands a completely different approach. Ancestry methods rely on analyzing single-point variations, demanding hundreds of thousands of individual data points to paint an incredibly lush panoramic biological landscape. This intense data concentration literally powers the entire tracing process, allowing investigators searching public servers to look far beyond simple direct hits. You are essentially ordering the system to flag any human being holding identical blocks of biological code, from immediate family down to distant relatives. The computer sketches an expansive family network out of those connections, granting detectives a roadmap to reverse engineer their way to the suspect. However, the major hurdle highlighted by our expert remains glaringly clear. Mathematical untangling tricks successfully used for standard biological matching are useless here. We simply lack the software capabilities to cleanly rip one person's advanced biological signature away from another when looking at these dense panoramic maps. Specialized math filters that isolate a tiny fractional suspect from standard database samples have never been successfully ported over to the complex ancestry tracing world. Mass-producing a flawless high-density biological map for someone making up just 10% of a tangled sample is scientifically impossible right now. This massive technological wall is single-handedly stalling the manhunt, exposing the brutal scientific reality of deeply intertwined biological evidence. Diving deeper into the actual lab work reveals the core truth, clearing up all the massive misconceptions currently floating around the true crime community. Experts building these advanced maps for family tracing normally rely on sophisticated screening chips or specialized methods for scanning the entire biological instruction manual. These techniques churn out hundreds of thousands to millions of distinct molecular checkpoints, targeting the exact tiny variations separating you from every other human. That massive resulting document then feeds directly into public ancestry networks, but tangled samples immediately trigger a catastrophic clash between desired targets and junk static. Picture straining to hear one faint violin while 9 booming brass instruments drown it out. The perpetrator's music exists somewhere inside the room. Those acoustic vibrations literally bounce off the walls, yet digitally isolating those notes to recreate the tune represents a massive unsolved hurdle for advanced mapping. Standard testing facilities already utilize heavy predictive software to analyze jumbled evidence and accurately guess the odds of specific markers belonging to the faintest suspect. Judges nationwide readily accept these mathematical programs consistently, securing guilty verdicts in situations where human eyes would completely fail to interpret the map. Those trusted applications strictly evaluate basic old-school biological flags rather than the massive sweeping panoramas demanded by modern family tree tracing. Trying to untangle the dense biological web required for advanced ancestry work turns the mathematical puzzle into an infinitely harder nightmare. Processing a highly tangled sample through advanced sequencing produces an overwhelmingly chaotic readout heavily contaminated by the biological footprints of every single person involved. Whenever the primary target possesses a unique molecular trait, but a louder contributor holds a differing variation, the sheer volume of background data crushes the perpetrator's fingerprint. Consequently, the resulting advanced map becomes completely useless for public servers, failing the strict purity standards demanded by popular ancestry networks. You cannot blame the detectives, federal agents, or lab techs for this standstill. Humanity just lacks the requisite scientific tools right now. Current technological solutions simply never anticipated this unique barrier, as old-school criminal biology and family tracing evolved completely separately to conquer vastly different obstacles. Smashing modern ancestry tracking into deeply tangled crime scene samples forms the absolute bleeding edge of modern science, and that frontier hasn't fully materialized yet. Her bleak assessment perfectly captures a massive technological bottleneck that global researchers are scrambling to shatter, making this particular stalled manhunt depressingly common today. The sheer weight of public outrage has turned this into an unprecedented situation, forcing authorities to move mountains and speed rescue. Let me get straight to the facts right now, and we need absolute accuracy regarding our sources since details are everything. Speaking directly to TMZ CeCe, Moore confirmed that insiders tied to the probe revealed custom programs are being rushed into production entirely due to the Nancy Guthrie tragedy. She specifically pointed to a firm named Estra as the likely developer behind this groundbreaking mixture-separating digital tool. Word on the street is that specialized hardware capable of cracking this exact issue should hit the market within 12 months, which almost never happens. To be perfectly transparent, this relies entirely on CeCe Moore's personal contacts as our sole point of reference, without outside verification, strictly crediting her official statements to TMZ. Even so, her claims regarding the push for advanced sequence separation tools align perfectly with the long-term goals of top forensic scientists everywhere. Academic journals have long documented the massive technical hurdle between standard genetic breakdowns and modern ancestral tracing. Countless federal agencies and independent laboratories alike have poured enormous energy into cracking this specific puzzle. CeCe Moore just dragged this quiet operation into the light by finally attaching an actual brand and a ticking clock to it. We now have a developer, an active investigation, and incredible momentum, assuming her contacts are reliable, which seems highly likely given her track record. Since she staked her entire career and credibility on these claims, it proves the Nancy Guthrie hunt goes far beyond utilizing standard police tools. It is literally forcing completely new inventions into existence, which is wild when you realize an 84-year-old missing Tucson resident has sparked a frantic corporate sprint to build futuristic commercial tech. This profound impact on the scientific community is no coincidence. It shows exactly how much intense scrutiny and relentless heat advocates are putting. According to her best guess, a fully functional version of this program remains several months to perhaps a full 12 months down the road. Do not hold your breath expecting a magical update to suddenly solve this mystery by next week. However, a clear blueprint is finally in place, meaning brilliant minds are busy paving the exact highway detectives require to hunt down the truth. That simple fact completely changes our entire perspective on where this massive manhunt currently stands. Anyone claiming detectives have hit a brick wall and given up is dead wrong, because what we are actually witnessing right now is a high-stakes sprint. We are watching an epic battle between a tangled genetic code, hiding the truth, and desperate innovators rushing to forge the tool required to decode it. Just because that specific hacking tool remains unbuilt today does not mean the vault stays sealed forever. The clock is entirely controlled by lab technicians and software designers rather than lawyers, while federal agents wait eagerly in the wings. Forget the idea of a lone squad doing this, because the Bureau commands a much broader and significantly more intimidating network than a solo team. Their advanced biological tracking operates via a dedicated lab unit tightly linked to a specialized investigative branch launched back in 2019. The entire purpose of this initiative is bringing cutting-edge ancestral tracing techniques straight into major national crime hunts. They basically weaponize commercial heritage, matching methods, pioneered by experts like CeCe Moore, and adapt them perfectly for heavy-duty government police work. During her interview, she explicitly stated that federal agents are waiting to launch a round-the-clock blitz the second a clean genetic blueprint emerges from the crime scene. This dedicated task force is absolutely primed for action, meaning an actionable profile will instantly trigger a relentless 24-hour federal push to crack things. She offered concrete facts rather than empty hope, painting a clear picture of a highly capable unit, locked, loaded, and fully prepped for battle. Armed with lawful authority and government backing, they simply need the lab results to catch up before activating. So understanding their jurisdictional limits is crucial right now. Contrary to popular belief, federal agents cannot just browse your private heritage profiles whenever they want a massive detail usually ignored during online true crime debates. Corporate giants like 23andMe and Ancestry enforce strict privacy rules and rigid internal bylaws that frequently block police from digging through their user files. Right now, investigators can only legally upload suspect samples into platforms like GED Match and Family Tree, DNA, under extreme. Since 2020, government investigators using familial tracing must play by a set of temporary rules established by the Department of Justice. These strict regulations mandate that authorities can only utilize this powerful matching technique for horrific attacks or to identify John and Jane Doe cases. Agents also need boss-level sign-offs, mandatory paper trails for every tip, and they must exclusively search platforms that openly welcome police queries. This tragic hunt checks every single box required for a federal biological sweep, yet it critically lacks the foundational sequence needed to jumpstart the entire matching machine. We are looking at one massive roadblock created entirely by scientific limitations, totally unrelated to a lack of police motivation or missing courtroom warrants. Ultimately, we have heavily armed agents fully briefed and legally cleared for action, just waiting behind the tape for the green light. They are staring at a massive commercial network holding tens of millions of potential matches, desperately seeking a killer whose biological signature remains hidden. The trace evidence sits trapped inside a messy lab sample, practically begging for a digital unlock code that programmers won't finish for months. This perfectly sums up the entire situation, highlighting exactly how deep this manhunt currently relies on futuristic lab breakthroughs. Imagine what happens once that digital key drops, especially since CeCe Moore's bombshell revelation remains the biggest public breakthrough we have heard in ages. Get ready for this massive reality check, 50 million different profiles, which is the exact staggering figure she officially confirmed when detailing the massive pool detectives could soon exploit. All of this unlocks the very second an actionable genetic sequence gets successfully pulled from the horrifying crime scene inside that residence. Imagine 50 million folks spitting into vials for at-home genetic testing, unlocking an absolute goldmine. Yet the industry's top three giants absolutely forbid cops from hunting through their massive servers. 50 million genetic blueprints are just resting in commercial vaults nationwide, mostly from folks simply curious about their family trees. Some sought medical insights, while others hoped to track down long-lost relatives, but absolutely nobody swabbed their cheek to catch a criminal. The vast majority remain utterly unaware that given precise courtroom approval and specialized forensic software, their personal biology can become a weapon. Essentially, the hidden ancestral links within their code could easily unmask an unknown suspect who deliberately avoided testing altogether. That forms the very backbone of forensic ancestry, tracing a complex process we must unpack, since popular media frequently gets it completely wrong. Feeding an unknown perpetrator's genetic signature into these massive ancestry webs does not mean detectives expect a perfect, immediate direct match. Instead, they are hunting for the offender's kin, searching out everyday citizens, possessing identical overlapping chromosomal sequences with the phantom target. Mothers, fathers, sisters, or even remote fourth cousins suddenly become crucial puzzle pieces provided they possess. After pinning down those familial links, an expert tracer matching CeCe Moore's caliber meticulously constructs expansive lineage networks branching out from those hits. The primary objective involves pinpointing a shared historical predecessor, connecting the user and the mystery sample, then tracing every single branch downward through history to isolate modern offspring fitting the precise age and gender profile of our wanted fugitive. Detectives meticulously filter that resulting pool against physical locations, criminal backgrounds, and circumstantial clues to isolate a parent. 2018's capture of the Golden State Killer thrust this tactic into the spotlight, bringing down Joseph James D'Angelo via a distant relative's GED match upload. The man completely bypassed the traditional system, keeping his personal biological markers utterly absent from any official police registry. However, his innocent extended family members, totally oblivious to their shared bloodline with a brutal murderer, had already submitted their swabs to commercial platforms. That proved entirely sufficient to catch him, and CeCe Moore recently informed TMZ that creating a workable blueprint from the Nancy Guthrie scene changes everything. Should scientists untangle the complex genetic knot and extract a pristine biological marker profile from the federal agents intend to secure immediate court orders, forcing those massive commercial ancestry platforms to open their doors. Once judges sign off and investigators dive into those servers, unmasking the culprit will not take agonizing years or months. Because of this, I'm fully convinced that extracting a functional marker sequence for commercial tracing platforms changes the entire ballgame here. Authorities will aggressively subpoena those corporate giants to accelerate the manhunt and bring this individual to justice rapidly. The timeline to unmask the perpetrator shrinks drastically from agonizing decades down to mere minutes, hours, or perhaps a few short days at most. Here lies the critical bottleneck as every single search party, public briefing hotline, tip, and Tucson deployment builds toward one defining laboratory breakthrough. That defining triumph happens the second scientists successfully pull a clear, usable marker sequence out of a currently unreadable biological soup. This specific turning point separates 65 frustrating days of dead ends from a sudden breakthrough occurring quicker than renewing your driver's license. Engineers are finalizing the software, analysts are ready to pounce. Servers hold the necessary files, and courtroom procedures are already established. We are simply waiting on the specialized software capable of forcing the physical clues to confess their secrets, bringing us to tonight's natural stopping point, as unfinished tragedies inherently lack satisfying, neat resolutions. We merely possess an honest assessment of our current stagnation and the harsh reality of required progress, while knowing the biological evidence recovered from Nancy's residence is absolute fact. Top-tier authorities control the physical samples right now, and according to leading industry experts, the current lack of handcuffs is absolutely not due to sloppy police work. Instead, detectives are slamming headfirst into a scientific limitation involving unique sample conditions that forensic experts have never previously tackled. They face a tangled biological web containing barely 10% of the target's genetic material, forcing crime labs to literally pave a new technological highway toward their known destination. By stepping in front of the cameras and attaching her stellar reputation to the delay, CeCe Moore just handed true crime followers a remarkably rare gift during an ongoing manhunt. She delivered total transparency regarding the underlying reasons, bypassing standard suspect theories to explain precisely why 65 agonizing days have ticked by without arrests, despite possessing concrete physical evidence at the actual crime scene. She detailed exactly why the final breakthrough will hit with such lightning speed that it will feel completely surreal compared to this agonizingly slow buildup. Moving forward over the coming weeks, our primary focus remains locked on whether developers can rapidly accelerate the required extraction software's release schedule. We are also monitoring if alternative lab techniques might somehow yield actionable clues before those advanced digital programs officially launch. Additionally, detectives might be quietly pulling on separate, unrelated investigative strings capable of blowing this mystery wide open. Physical swabs are hardly the sole puzzle pieces in play here, acting merely as the loudest clue within a much larger, complex narrative. Should you hold any confirmed details, possess first-hand observations, or harbor actionable intelligence regarding this horrific tragedy, drop any overlooked but publicly documented facts straight into the comment section down below, as our viewers routinely highlight critical details that authorities actually pursue. Our team personally reviews every single message and tracks all ongoing theories, especially since Nancy Guthrie remains vanished after 65 excruciating days. Law enforcement is actively hunting. Physical clues, our secure laboratory technology advances daily, and we promise to return with Our broadcast strictly serves educational and deep dive journalism functions, heavily relying upon unsealed public documents, verified expert statements, and established news syndicates. Nobody has been officially accused regarding Nancy Guthrie's vanishing meaning. Any speculative theories presented herein simply reflect our team's creative analysis of the currently established public record. Facts come first on this channel, so unconfirmed tips always carry massive disclaimers. We absolutely refuse to invent details, broadcast baseless rumors about real people, or maliciously destroy anyone's character. Got hard evidence regarding this investigation? Alert the Puma County Sheriff's Tip Desk at 520-351-9. 49. For emotional support, in a world that often moves too fast, it's easy to overlook the quiet lessons hidden in everyday moments. Yet within those moments lies the true essence of growth, empathy, and understanding. The story we've just explored reminds us that life is not only about achievements or outcomes, but about the choices we make and the way we treat others along the journey. Every challenge carries a lesson, and every mistake is an opportunity to become better. When we choose kindness over indifference, courage over fear, and honesty over convenience, we begin to shape not only our own character, but also the world around us. Small actions often unnoticed can leave lasting impacts on people's lives. What truly matters is not perfection, but intention. It's about showing up, trying again, and believing that even the smallest effort can create change. When we learn to listen to care and to act with purpose, we inspire others to do the same. In the end, the greatest success is not measured by what we gain, but by what we give and the positive difference we leave behind.